Discourse number 1 in part 2 of Works of Love, entitled Love Builds Up, begins with some observations on metaphorical language. In this chapter, we encounter, for example, the metaphor of constructing a building for the process of Bildung, through which the self is built up by love. We also find love's relation to selfhood compared to the seed of the plant that grows up from the soil to stand beautifully in the field among the other grains that flourish there. Looking back to the first discourse of part 1, we find the parallel metaphor of love proceeding like water from a spring, whose basis is concealed from view. Love forms us as it flows from us into the world of others. It is like the molten volcanic lava that flows forth into beautiful rock formations. In Love Builds Up, Kierkegaard identifies love as literally the source of everything and as the deepest ground of the spiritual life. This enigmatic hidden influence is at the heart of his metaphysics of selfhood. It is the condition of possibility for meaningful engagement with the world and, at the same time, the power that shapes the self for each loving subject. The common theme that unites Kierkegaard's varying imagery in Works of Love is that love is the hidden ground of a visible reality. And what is implied by his series of metaphors is that love must be posited as a foundational influence in order for phenomenal reality to be the way it appears. Without this basic disposition, we would not have access to those features of the world that stand out for us and move us to respond emotionally. Each of my emotions involves an awareness of someone or something that I value. These valuable persons, places, and things define my world of concern. They are prominent while other things recede into the background. When we view the world with the heightened attention and concern that a loving disposition brings, we find that it is charged with significance. This is because such an outlook disposes us toward noticing and appreciating the meaning of things whose reality and value might otherwise have been invisible to us. Because emotions have to do with aspects of the environment that matter to us, an indifferent person to whom nothing matters would fail to notice any of what is competing for his or her attention. An unloving standpoint renders indifferent every difference, as Marion explains, because that which is, if it does not receive love, is as if it were not. That which we do not distinguish because it does not matter to us may as well not exist for us, and in a sense, it does not exist as far as we are concerned. Now consider what this implies. If it is true that we can hardly take notice of anything that does not seem even minimally valuable or significant, then comprehensive apathy would amount to a loss of the world, brought about by one's own disinterested withdrawal from it. So we're told that just as we can be deceived by believing what is untrue, we can also be deceived by not believing what is true. What does this mean? I think it means some of what is actually there to be seen will be hidden from us if our state of mind prevents us from taking it in. As an affective disposition, love gives us an enhanced mode of awareness, building up our concerns. And it builds up the beloved by presupposing that he or she is a fundamentally loving subject. As we are told in an earlier chapter, to love means essentially to will to exist for unconditionally every human being. Adopting this stance of non-indifference, we affirm his or her being qua someone who loves, whose own life is grounded in a basic emotional power that flows into relations of concern. What moves us to take an interest in anything outside ourselves is thus present in its most intense and emphatic form as unselfish love of another person for his own sake. Love flows in a warm affirmation of the beloved and is involved in an invisible but divine task, as Ortega writes. Think of what it is to love art or your country. It is like recognizing and confirming at every moment that they are worthy of existence. This broader sense of the word love is what Marion has in mind when he claims that love makes visible the things of this world, which are apparent to us only insofar as we are not indifferent to them. If I loved no one and cared about nothing, then the world would be deprived of its axiological salience. If love were to be absent, then everything would be confused, as we read in works of love. Each of us is aware of the meaning and value of things only because love is already at work behind the scenes, allowing what is there to appear as meaningful. The nature of the objective world as it is known by human beings cannot be established without taking into account the structure of the human subject to whom it is disclosed. Focusing on the realm of affective experience, Merleau-Ponty suggests that if we can understand how any significant reality comes to exist for us through love, then we shall thereby come to understand better how things and beings can exist in general. In his edifying discourse entitled "Love Will Hide a Multitude of Sins," Kierkegaard says that what one sees depends upon how one sees, adding that the good in the world will be apparent from the charitable vantage point of a loving person, whereas an evil eye will give us a tainted view of things. The thread that binds together these remarks ought to be plain enough. Since the truth about the world will vary in accordance with our affective disposition or attunement, it is all important to refine our way of feeling. Others exist for us because they matter to us, and our most reliable mode of access to who they are is an unselfish love that builds up or loves forth by passionately endorsing their unique existence as loving subjects. Rather than being one element among others within the horizon of human experience, love thus reveals itself in shaping the way the world unfolds for each of us. As Kierkegaard maintains, it is generally true that something manifests itself to the one who loves it. Our awareness of what we love and care about orients our attention and defines our sense of reality. What is loved is felt to be real and incontestably significant. In this manner, love organizes our entire world of experience, allowing others to appear as meaningful, as final ends who are themselves oriented toward aims and goals based upon what and whom they love. The fact that love makes us aware of the significance of things does not necessarily entail that this significance is projected onto the world by our own minds. Love is better viewed as what enables us to apprehend features that are not of our own invention, but that could easily be lost on us due to our own blindness. In this way, the perception of value can depend on love, even if love does not involve the bestowal of value. My identity as a loving and caring being thereby gives rise to a many-sided interest in the things of this world. Love takes part with us in everything, forming the heart as it flows from the heart and allowing a meaningful world of concern to come to light for each person who loves. Furthermore, I must acknowledge the same validity and dignity in every other human being insofar as this affective power is active in each of our lives. When I take an interest in the interests of another person, I succeed to a degree in loving what is their own in the same way that I love what is my own, what I myself care about, or what lies within my world of concern. Again, love for one's neighbor means loving each one individually and affirming the existence of each distinct person. It means wanting the other person to be and to have good things. And the wish for another person's life to be going well makes sense only with reference to what that person loves. If I love you and you love to compose music, I love you in your love of composing, and I want you to be thriving in this love. This is what it means to take an interest in the interests of another. And it is why, if we did not love anything, then no aspect of the universe would stand out as salient and elicit our attention. There is a significance in things which, as Merleau-Ponty says, I do not constitute, yet which can be revealed only through the structure of my subjectivity. Although I am not drastically free to give it whatever meaning I choose, to a dispassionate observer, its meaning would not be realized or disclosed. My heightened awareness of those whom I love and care about thus enables me to appreciate what I otherwise would not have been able to see. Now, love may not have the magic power to create value that isn't there, such as an aptitude or inclination that simply doesn't exist. But the gaze of the loving person who views what is there in the most favorable light does open up possibilities that had not been apparent to anyone else. And one who loves can thereby help the beloved person in their life as a lover. As Kierkegaard notes, Christ did not allocate his love for Peter based on an estimation of how much Peter was worth loving. What Kierkegaard admires is that this love embraced Peter as he was, with all his imperfections, with the thought that such unconditional love might perhaps help Peter to become a better person. Likewise, he claims in works of love that a true artist is someone who, by bringing a certain something with him, is able to find some beauty anywhere he looks, not the one who is so fastidious as to be always looking in vain for the perfect image of beauty. In speaking of the significance of things, therefore, we are referring to an aspect of reality that depends on the subject in a way that other features of the world do not. The lovable properties of a person are not like the shape and texture of a solid object, which can be tested and confirmed by many different observers. They are more akin to the color of a rainbow, which is a well-founded phenomenon which does not appear at all from most perspectives. What it means to say that the rainbow is visible is that these appearances are there to be met with in the object's relation to the subject, to borrow a phrase from the Critique of Pure Reason. Applying the same idea to the realm of affective experience, we could say that loving something can be experienced as meaningful if it is met with on the path of care. To love, as we see again, is essential to our being creatures of the kind that we are, as our sense of reality is defined by what we love, and we ourselves are built up in the process. Moral agency itself depends on the contrast between adequate and delinquent ways of seeing the other. And this explains all the attention that is given to vision and perception in Kierkegaard's moral psychology. By opening our eyes to the significance of other persons, love brings to light the axiological dimension of the world and founds our capacity for practical reason. This is what makes it possible for us to have experiences in which things delight and threaten us, alarm and calm us. In short, love is what allows us to experience the world as an emotionally charged environment that moves us in all the various ways that it does. Through this mode of experience, we discern things to which dispassionate reason is blind, much as ears and hearing are blind to colors. Our emotional responses embody a mode of vision, but what they enable us to see would be invisible to anyone without the necessary sort of affective attunement. Because emotions call our attention to those parts of the environment that pertain to what we love, an apathetic or uncaring person will not notice much that stands out as salient to someone who is emotionally open, receptive, and engaged. On the other hand, when a person views the world with the heightened attention and concern that a loving disposition brings, he or she finds that it is not neutrally valenced, but permeated with tangible significance. When I love someone, it is likely that I am especially aware of her best qualities because these are amplified in the light of my radiant gaze. This is not tantamount to admiring a falsified image of the person, which obstructs my view of her as she really is. If it were, then there could not be cases in which we fail to see the individual because we are completely enclosed in a fantasy world of our own making. Yet we do make this distinction. And regardless of how intoxicating it may be to imagine that the highest and most perfect kind of love is one that takes flight from the concrete, Kierkegaard entreats us not to lose sight of the actual individual person in favor of our own ideal notion of how the person ought to be. Without the right kind of affective orientation, we cannot experience the significance of things. Yet this does not entail, again, that the significance of things is a distortion imposed on them by our own perspective. When Frankfurt says, for example, that what we love acquires value for us because we love it, he can make it sound as though the lover is projecting value onto what is loved, value which the beloved does not actually possess. Yet if we keep in mind that our access to the world is only through its effect on sentient beings, then we should not conclude so easily that love gives us a false view of things just because it allows us to see more than the cold eye of reason could discern. In some cases, it seems that, as Shaler claims, the blindness is all on the side of the detached observer. For instance, recognizing a tone of resentment in the voice of someone we love, which a neutral observer would fail to notice, might lead us to worry about our relationship. And this worry could be founded on very real evidence, providing us with epistemically desirable insight into objective reality. Yet it is our love for this person, our care for the relationship we share with them, that attunes us to take notice of something that others would miss. If we didn't love them, we could easily remain cool-headed, impartial, and thus oblivious to a fact that is transparently evident to anyone who cares enough to perceive it. So what we see depends in part on our way of seeing. Seeing that another person is suffering, for example, requires more than just pointing one's eyes at her while she is located in a well-lit place. It also requires that we view her with the attention and concern that highlight whatever we love and care about. Drawing an analogy between emotional perception and color vision, Kierkegaard points out that it is only if you yourself have love that you know what it is like to experience the world in this light, in the same way that the blind person cannot know color differences. The person with normal eyesight, of course, does not generate a world of visible and colorful objects out of his own mind. Rather, he must be constituted in a certain way in order to perceive what is visible, namely, real features of the world that can be detected by those who are suitably disposed or attuned to them. Once we have rejected the incoherent notion of an absolute objectivity viewed from nowhere, we have no reason to assume that there is a value-neutral world out there that our emotional responses project value onto. Indeed, to say that the subject projects value onto things makes it sound as if there is an agent already there, ontologically separate from love. But this is false if it is love that defines the contours of our involvement in the world. Because each of us becomes a distinct self by forming bonds of love or care with the external world, it follows that a person's moral identity is defined by love. This is precisely why love makes it possible for us to engage wholeheartedly in meaningful activity, and also why it is, as Kierkegaard writes elsewhere, a virtue to be truly in love. Without love, we could not gain access to the values that orient our existence. Love is a source of reasons because loving something or someone means taking its interests as reasons for acting to serve those interests. In this sense, love is the ultimate ground of practical reason and of selfhood. Just as colors cannot be seen by a blind person, the significance of things cannot be perceived without love. This is especially true with respect to the kind of knowledge we gain in becoming acquainted with another person, as they are and as they might potentially become. Rather than simply altering our view of someone who is already quite well known to us, love is what allows the person to show up and be noticed in the first place. This is why to love and to know are essentially synonymous, as Kierkegaard proposes in a highly suggestive journal entry. He may be intending something like Shaler's claim that love is knowledge because we come to know an individual personality only through the act of loving, which discloses the person in his or her irreplaceable particularity. Since the specific particularity of the beloved is what one loves about him or her, it would make no sense to settle for a qualitatively similar replacement. This position is far removed from a view of the individual beloved as bearer of properties, such as beauty or goodness, that are more perfectly instantiated elsewhere, not in the individual per se. However, it is fully congruent with the emphasis on distinctive individuality that runs throughout Kierkegaard's corpus. Continuing with his own deeply Kierkegaardian line of thought, Max Shaler affirms that love plays a disclosing or unveiling role in the realm of value experience, enhancing our moral awareness and expanding our range of contact with the universe. Our capacity to love or care enables us to encounter significant aspects of the vast, complex, and multifaceted world that surrounds us. We are not talking about how the mind organizes experience in terms of universal categories. Instead, what is at issue is how a significant world takes shape around the vantage point of an individual person. Each of us does this in his or her own way, since a subject or a person is, above all, someone for whom a world exists. And love is precisely what allows us to see whatever good is there to be seen. As one of Kierkegaard's pseudonymous authors reminds us, life is rich enough if only one understands how to see. Out of all that is worthy of love, each of us has access only to a limited part. This places an outer boundary on what we are emotionally capable of knowing. We finite beings are condemned to an inevitable partiality with respect to what we love and care about. The variation between one person's affective sense of the world and that of another has prompted some thinkers to conclude that the virtues of the beloved must be pure gifts bestowed onto him or her by the one who loves. Yet I think it is more plausible to link the idea that love enables us to see with a realism about what it brings into view. It is, after all, a realist who will most readily acknowledge that the thing we think of existed before we thought of it, just as the virtues of the beloved were there to be seen before anyone saw them, and that it exists even while we think of it in ways that we do not know. There is always more to the object of love and to the objective world more generally than what has already been revealed to us. And since each of us can only know so much of what is emotionally knowable, it takes a plurality of loving subjectivities in order to know more fully the truth about the world. Only a Stoic or someone like the young man in Stages on Life's Way would assume that if love is rational, then the lovable ought to compel universal assent. In loving a person, a place, a favorite or work of art, or whatever it might be, we should be cognizant of the fact that what we see in him, her, or it has probably not yet been glimpsed by everyone else. And when we love someone or something, we often find ourselves trying to figure out what makes it so captivating, even as we know that this does not exhaust what it has to offer. As long as love persists, the person who loves will always feel that there is more to the beloved that is still worth coming to know and celebrate. Love points beyond what is immediately present into a future in which much more remains to be discovered. To feel that there is nothing more to be revealed about someone or something is to have ceased loving altogether. As long as we do love, what we love presents itself to us as an inexhaustible reality that has many aspects yet to be appreciated and understood. By contrast, when we feel that there is nothing more to it, this is because we have ceased to care. By making us able to see, love also reveals that there is always more to what we love than has yet been disclosed to us. When I love someone, I am likely to discern whatever good may exist in her. Still, in addition to all the adorable characteristics that she has and that I adore, there is always something more. This is another reason for thinking that we will always fall short in attempting to validate our loves and cares in terms of objective merit. Although we are not painting the world in false colors through our loves and cares, we do rely on the requisite affective comportment in order to apprehend the significance of anything, including the more beautiful or lovable side of a person as they are, rather than as we think or could wish that this person should be. In loving another person, I take an interest in what he or she loves and cares about, and I cannot possibly know the whole truth about his or her loves and cares prior to loving. If I am open to allowing those whom I love to amend my own values and my sense of what is good, then I cannot regard myself and my values as unalterably settled ahead of loving, and use my pre-existing standards to evaluate a person's love worthiness. When I hold back and refrain from loving someone because I am in doubt as to whether he or she is worthy, the result may be that I do not really see the person at all. Nor would I appreciate all that is there to be seen if I require that the love of a person or object or activity should be proportional to its value or worthiness to be loved. Not only will this defensive stance close me off from being changed through a responsive engagement with the other, but I am not in a position to know all that is worthy of love in someone or something, as long as I stand at a critical distance and judge whether or not he, she, or it is worthy. The standpoint of distrust on Kierkegaard's account is directly opposed to that of love, and it could be nothing more than a resistance to being transformed by seeing another aspect of the multifaceted good. The antecedent demand for justification in terms of objectively love-worthy qualities may preclude the discovery of what one is supposedly looking for. This is why Marion states that the project of knowing another person adequately, even before loving her, has no meaning whatsoever. It is because what we love does not come fully into view in its actuality and its possibilities before we love it. This, of course, is because its reality and value are visible only for those with eyes to see. And if we can see, our love will have an edifying effect on us, but not on us merely. That is how love builds up both self and other. Thank you.